Okay, now we can move on and look at other structures that are derived from the epidermis. And the first structure we're going to talk about are hair follicles. So we're going to talk about the three things: hair follicles first, and then we're going to talk about nails, and we're going to talk about glands. So a hair follicle is a very special structure here that is an invagination of the epidermis. So here you see epidermis, regular skin, epidermis. Here's the underlying dermis. All the way from here to here, we got papillary reticular, and then here we have hypodermis down here. And so you see the epidermis and it's coming along, and then it invaginates downwards. It's probably got cut off at the bottom to make a hair follicle, and then it comes back up and it keeps going. And so the hair follicle within itself is very similar to the rest of the epidermis in regard to the fact that it's mainly made up of keratinocytes that are going to produce keratin and harden and become cornified. It's a little bit different kind of keratin. So the keratin is a harder keratin that creates hair instead of being a little bit softer, like the type of keratin that is on the surface of your body. And so it's a pretty cool structure. And generally speaking, it's distributed all over the body with the exception of a few areas like the labia minora, the penis, the lips, palms of the hands, and soles of the feet. So those are all places that we don't have hair distributed at. And the distribution of hair can really vary widely according to the individual person. And also the growth of hair within itself can vary between people, and it can vary between regions on each person's body. And there's usually growth phases where your hair may grow a lot, and then there's times when your hair might not grow as much, and so it's not a constant rate. And then the color of the hair has to do with the type of melanin that gets transferred from the melanocytes in the hair follicles to the keratinocytes that are in that hair follicle's matrix. So it's a pretty cool process. Again, the concept is extremely similar to the production of skin. It's just a slightly different keratin and different kinds of melanin. Okay, so here you can see the main components of a hair follicle. So here's the hair follicle within itself. So it's going to have a matrix here at the base of the hair follicle. It's going to be supported by a dermal papillae that will give it lots of blood supply and innervation. And you can see this yellowish orangish structure in the center. Sometimes it's not evident in the hair follicle that have fallen out during preparation, and that's the actual shaft of the hair, and that's what it looks like usually when you're looking at a histology slide. And then you can see other types of bubbly glands that are adjacent to hair follicles. Sometimes you see them and they're not because the hair follicle didn't get cut in the section, but these structures are called sebaceous glands, and that's one kind of gland that we're going to talk about, and it actually grows outward from part of the hair follicle, the external root sheet, and so it comes from the epidermis as well. And this one here is associated with the hair follicle. It's just not next to it in this section. And then the other structure that usually goes along in this unit is called an erector pili muscle. And here you can see a long one here, and you can't see the associated hair follicle, but you can see the sebaceous gland, and you can see erector pili muscle here. And so these three components, the hair follicle, sebaceous gland, and erector pili muscle, are all part of a unit called the pilosebaceous unit. And so you can see these in slides that they go together, and their function are related to each other. So the sebaceous gland here that's pictured is going to secrete a type of waxy, more oily secretion that's going to get secreted into the hair follicle, and that secretion will coat the hair, and then as the hair grows, it's going to have that sort of protective layer on it. Now, the erector pili muscle is autonomically innervated, so that means that it's smooth muscle, and it is going to contract when it's stimulated. The sympathetic nervous system is going to cause it to contract, and it's going to do two things. It's going to squeeze some of those secretions out of the sebaceous glands, and it's also going to stand that hair up straighter. So it's actually connected down to the base of the hair follicle, and it causes the base to come this way and the top to move that way, and it stands the hair up. So if anyone's had goosebumps, and really, has anybody not had goosebumps? I mean, everybody's probably had goosebumps, and you can appreciate the fact that your hairs stand up, and that is really can be a response to fright, but it also can be a response to being cold, because the hair standing up will slow the movement of air across the surface of the body and help to keep warmer air at the surface and stop that warmer air from being removed as fast, and it helps with thermoregulation. You probably hadn't thought of it that way, but now that you can put together the fact that your hair stands up when you get cold, it might not help a whole lot, but every little bit counts if you're a little bit chilly. Okay. So when you look at the hair follicle close up, it can look rather complex. But if you still hold on to the concept that really the same thing is happening, that we're going to have basal layer of cells that is is here called the matrix, and it is going to produce keratinocytes that are going to divide, and they're going to move inwards. So this is an oblique cut. They're going to move inwards and also move outwards instead of only moving outwards. And this is a more of a cross section of the hair follicle, and you can not see the matrix in this section, but you're looking farther up on the hair, in the shaft of the hair, and looking at it, these elements. And in this section, you can more see the base of the hair follicle. Here's a dermal papilla and the matrix that is going to divide and create the keratinocytes that will cornify and become actual hair that's not pictured in this image. So when I click through here, you can see the keratinocytes would be located, that would be dividing in this matrix. And then as you move more inwards, you come with a structure that's called the internal root sheath. It's not fully appreciated here as a circle. Here you could see that it is a circular structure. The internal root sheath is made up of keratinocytes, and those keratinocytes are the ones that are about to become cornified and turn into the hair that's here, okay? And here is an oblique cut, so you only see parts of it. If I keep going more, actually this is outwards, you can see this other cellular layer where the cells are a little more scattered apart, and this is called the external root sheath. And instead of being keratinocytes that are going to become cornified, these keratinocytes are actually, in this layer, they're actually continuous with the keratinocytes that are part of the rest of the epidermis that ended up invaginating. And so I'm going to show you another section, and that will become a little bit clearer. But here, this is what is depicted in this picture. And then when you're looking at the hair itself, it has three parts. It has a cuticle, which is the outer layer that is kind of shingle-like, and then it has a cortex, which is the next really outer whole region, and the middle part is the medulla. And then also there is a separation between the outer underlying connective tissue that is part of the dermis, and then all of this inside structure that is made up of the epidermal ingrowth that we call the hair follicle, and that separation is called the glassy membrane. And so that is going to be pretty much like the basal lamina is going to be, or basement membrane is going to be there. Okay, and so here you can see the shingle-like pattern of the cuticle, which is the outer layer of the actual hair, and this is a hair in cross-section, and here you can see the stacking of the cuticle, the hardened cortex, and softer medulla region. And then in this EM, you can also see the internal root sheath, so these are keratinocytes that will become cornified, and then you can see the external root sheath. And this is actually going to be the part that's going to, not really part of the hair follicle, but supporting it, and is continuous with the rest of the epidermis. Okay, so I thought I had an image. Let me see if I can go backwards. Okay, so if I take this image and I look at the epidermis continuing and it invaginating downwards, these cells, as they move downward, this is making up the external root sheath. And so that's what I mean when I say it's not really the cells that are going to become a hair, but rather they are the continuation of the epidermis. So I just wanted to give you a mental picture so that you could hold on to that. Okay, so now we're going to do nails next after we answer a couple questions.